You're listening to Leader FM.
Leader FM is hosted by Executive Coach Dr. Scott Francis and Marketing Media Man Tony Creech.
When you approach people, one of the things I've heard you say, and you just correct me if this is right or wrong, is that it's important for you that there's a difference between what good leadership is and what bad leadership is.
Yeah.
How do you talk about that in the way you approach it?
I often hear people make the mistake of saying, that's not leadership. That's leadership over there. And what they're saying is, that's crappy and that's good. So that's real leadership and that other stuff over there is not. And that's simply not true. Any time somebody is a catalyst to change for a society, they're leading. Right? If they're making it turn one way or the other, there's leadership happening. So, you can just like you would be wrong to say that Hitler wasn't a leader. He was definitely a leader. Now what he did for society was horrible, but he was a leader. And so leadership can be good and bad. And that's maybe too simple a way of looking at it. So looking at the manifesto, that my thing was substance is when you've got that depth of character, that there is a higher chance of the good within you outweighing the bad.
As a line in your, if you phrased it like, I believe there is such a good thing as good leaders and bad leaders. Is that the way you would state it?
Yes, except it'd be deeper. I believe there are good leaders, and I believe there are bad leaders, and I believe that you're both. Right? I think they're like the good leader and the bad is in both of us. And it is a major error to think that I'm one of the good ones and those people over there are the bad ones, because all of a sudden we start.
I would never say that.
No, you would never would. No.
So there are good leaders and bad leaders, and we are both.
Yes. So if you are a person of substance, it is more likely that you're going to look at your own life with a higher degree of reflection, suspicion that the dark side might be showing up. You're going to be more likely to get your ego, the negative parts of it, out of the way, because you are a person of substance, right? If you're a person who's a little more shallow, or more by substance, I would mean that you let your ego have its way with you. You're blown about like the flotsam and jetsam on the ocean. Then it's more likely that you're going to just fly off the handle, or do things in such a way that it's much more selfish as opposed to serving other people. So we are. When you look at us being good and bad, how would you describe that? What does that look like? Well,
I think you said something about a shadow.
Okay, so shadow, that's a deep, and we're getting into the language here of how you use the term shadow. And when it comes to the shadow work, what we mean by that is that you're being honest about those dark aspects of yourself, and you're trying to safely integrate them into what you are being, as opposed to trying to push them down. Okay. So when you say shadow, you mean the dark side of ourselves, or things that we don't like that we do? Yeah. So this needs just a moment here to explain this. So this is based on Carl Jung's work on shadow, and here's how it works. He says that we all need to be able to bring a persona to whatever we're doing in work and in life and whatnot. And by that he means this: society requires that we behave a certain way. Sometimes, in order to succeed, you have to pretend, right? So, for example, sometimes when I'm working with a customer, in the emergency field, I'm called at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I go rushing out there to deal with the crisis, and I need to show up and not give any kind of indication that I'm upset that I got woken up in the middle of the night, right? Even though a little bit I am. right? There's a part of me that's just saying, I really wish I was sleeping right now. I need to bring a high degree of professionalism. And that's a good one there. Professionalism is a form of persona. So you're putting on a mask.
You're describing college students right now.
Maybe.
There's a part of me that wishes it was sleeping right now.
So you need to be able to put on this mask. And if you're not able to do a degree of pretending, then you're going to end up having a lot of trouble in your professional and personal life. To a point. Now, so here's the thing. Whenever you pretend to be something, and there's a part of you that is not, it casts a shadow. That's what Jung said. It casts a shadow into your psyche. Okay, so it's and anything good, it casts a shadow, right? So I may be pretending to have everything together, but on the inside there is a shadow being cast of chaos, right? You may have someone who's putting on the persona of being very prim and proper, right? But on the inside, they're a bit more of a adventuring crazy person, right? When the shadow cast is really dark, in other words, but what it means is that shadow is the opposite of what society is calling for, then we start to become embarrassed by that shadow in ourselves, and we try and squish it down. And that's repression, is what that does.
Okay, so if I really,
that took people deep, hey?
Yeah, if there's a part of me, and I mean, is your use of shadow strictly Jungian, or is it just? Is there just also just?
Well, okay, so
like, I mean, that, you can think of that. That sounds like, I'm just wondering if some people can also just think of things they think are bad that are within themselves. Are those usually linked to personas?
Well, yeah, see, here's the thing. When you say something bad within myself, usually we're talking about something about my work environment requires me to be a certain thing.
Yeah.
And so I have to put the opposite of that away because that's bad. For example, losing your temper, right? In most cases, we would say losing your temper is a bad thing. Generally. But there are moments where losing your temper is exactly what's needed in the situation. And
like if you were on the Avengers.
The Avengers? Oh, the movie The Avengers? Sure. Oh, I get you saying now. Yeah, you had to catch that on video too, yeah. Change our background green.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good example there. He is repressing, the Hulk you're talking, is repressing anger. And then that's when he's the man, and then he lets the anger come, and then...
That's why I'm wondering about how you approach dealing with it, because in my journey, I remember being young and being afraid of my own ambition, and process that now. But like back then, it felt kind of hulkish, where I would try to avoid being in charge. Well, and when I would get in charge finally. Because I didn't want to be in charge, because I was worried that that's a bad thing to have ambition, to want to be the leader. That's like it only could be ego, only could be bad. Therefore, the good person is the person who's like, I don't want to be in charge. And then sometimes because of all that repression, it felt like a giant spring that would spring over, and then it goes to a point, and then I'm like, no more, and I become a tyrant and I attack. Yeah. And seeing that in myself was really hard, especially because if you're like that and you finally explode, you have a lot of mental justifications for your explosion. So it was really hard for me to see. I had unless you can really learn to hear what other people say about you and trust that they can see things you can't see from your position, it's really hard. But I guess I saw this thing in myself, and I thought I was trying to get rid of it or trying to avoid it, either by position or by repression. And how do you approach the fact that we have these, like, how do you approach that?
So, okay.
And you've worked with me, so I know a bit of your approach, but I'd like to hear more about it.
So ambition, that piece there, that's a great one to bring in here with the shadow and whatnot, because leaders, it's right at the center of leaders' growth development. Ambition is a piece that flows from ego, okay? And too often we make the mistake of saying that a good leader has no ego. So get rid of ego, and then you're going to be just this perfect leader. Well, then the problem is, if that's true, then that ambition which says I want to make something of myself, then that goes away too, and we become just subservient slaves, and that's the last thing you want. With a lot of the companies I work with on succession planning, they're hunting around their HR departments. They've got feelers out amongst their staff looking for people to tap for leadership. And they're looking for that piece. Are they ambitious enough? Because if without ambition, they're not going to do any kind of training. They're not going to,
without drive, you're not going to drive.
Yeah, you need to have that. And you got young girls. I got my daughter's now as a teen. When she gets into dating seriously, the last thing I want to see is her dating somebody who has no ambition.
That's like the nightmare from TV shows, right? It's like, here's my boyfriend Greg, and Greg's like, I don't care about work.
Yeah, so Greg might have this perfect ego that is non-existent, but as a result, he's not going to make something of himself. So
some people use ego in a negative way, like Ryan Holiday. Some people have written about ego, but they redefine it as only the bad parts of drive and stuff. But you don't necessarily separate them. Well,
okay, now we're getting into the language around how you define ego.
Yeah.
And depending which psychologist you're talking to, they each define it a little different. So, but what I'm getting at is it's that part within yourself that drives for ambition, but also can be easily bruised and which you want to protect. And that's the problem, is way too often we get into defense mechanisms. Because the last thing I want is for somebody to tell me something I don't want to hear, which makes me feel bad about who I am. Right? And so leadership, it's amazing how many leaders I see who need to feel like they're the smartest person in the room. Right? Or they need to feel like they are loved by everybody. And that runs into major problems, right?
Michael Scott?
Yeah. No, that's a great example.
I can't think about him, otherwise I will start acting like him.